So what is infrastructure as code? Specifically, infrastructure as code is about the physical layer. It's about the infrastructure layer. So it goes up to, but not inclusive of, the operating system. So it builds everything below the operating system for you. So we're using code to define the networking, the compute, the data layers, all of these different layers that constitute that physical infrastructure. We're now using code to build those layers instead of going into a console and manually clicking buttons, which is, again, as we said previously, is very error prone and gives you very variable results. So tools like Terraform, CloudFormation, Azure ARM templates, they give us they abstract away the infrastructure and give us the option of writing our infrastructure as code, and once we've deployed that code, we end up coming out the other end. We get our physical infrastructure as we expect it to. And so there are many tools on the market that we can use to actually achieve infrastructure as code today. Terraform is my choice of tool. It's the tool that I favor the most, and with Terraform I manage VPCs, subnets, IAM policies, RDS instances, security groups, network access control lists, S3 buckets, just about anything you can think of in S3, I'm pretty much managing with my Terraform code. Completely, 100% of it fully automated. So IAC, or infrastructure as code, also gives us a lot of advantages too. So not only is it building our infrastructure for us, similar to what we see here in this photo, we've got these buildings being built here by these cranes. So if you imagine that these cranes are Terraform code, we're writing our code and the cranes come up, they build the building for us, and then they go away again, and the building looks exactly what we asked for. Not only do we get that, but we also get code, and code can be audited. People can see what everyone else is doing, and you can flag up problems if code doesn't quite look right, looks malicious, or it looks wrong, or it looks dangerous, looks faulty, for example. Code can also be reviewed by other people before it's deployed, which is a very powerful concept. In operations, the code review isn't really something that's within our vocabulary. It's not a common vernacular, whereas in the software engineering space, a code review and pair programming, for example, are extremely common concepts that most developers understand. And the code can act as documentation and also the history surrounding the life cycle of your infrastructure, so we can look through the code to understand what the infrastructure looks like, but we can also go through the history of the changes within that code base in order to determine how the infrastructure has evolved over time. And a code base of infrastructure as code lets you roll back problems or resolve faulty code far easier than doing it manually in a console. If someone makes a change in a console and does something manually and it breaks something else, it's very hard to trace what happened. Well, with infrastructure as code, you've got your code and all the changes, all the commits that were made right there in the repository. So if someone makes a change and it's a breaking change, all you actually do is look at the commits and you compare them. You find the commit that made the breaking change, you compare it to the previous commit, and so GitLab, for example, will show you the differences between those code bases, and you can work out from that near instantly the change that introduced the broken infrastructure, that basically broke your deployment, and you can undo that change and get your infrastructure back into a working, production-ready setup much, much quicker than you could do if you didn't have infrastructure as code. And infrastructure as code can be automated too, so it fits in really, really nicely into a CI/CD platform, because once you've written your code, you can run the tools yourself on the console, such as Terraform apply, and off you go. It will apply everything for you. Well, that same command can be run in a CI/CD pipeline. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. And so infrastructure as code fits really, really nicely into a CI/CD pipeline, into a CI/CD process, and therefore you can actually now start to introduce full automation around the deployment of your infrastructure in Amazon, in AWS, in GCP, in Azure, in any cloud provider that you can imagine.